Good day, everyone. Once again, this is a four-part presentation of the message of the LaSalette secret. So this is part 3, and I'll continue where she leaves off after the secret has been told Melanie. Then the Holy Virgin gave me, also in French, the rule of a new religious order. When she had given me the rule of this new religious order, the Holy Virgin continued the speech in the same manner. If they convert, the stones and rocks will change into wheat, and potatoes will be found sown in the earth. Do you say your prayers properly, my children? We both replied, Oh, no, madame, not so much. Oh, my children, you must say them morning and evening. When you can do no more, say a Pater, which is an Our Father, and an Ave Maria, or a Hail Mary. And when you have the time to do better, you will say more. I oftentimes recommend that to married couples, even if there's a family rosary that people will pray together as a family, which is great. Even to begin to teach your children a decade of the rosary, maybe do like a mini rosary, the Apostles' Creed, and then one of the meditations on one of the mysteries to teach the children the mysteries of the rosary, and do an Our Father and 10 Hail Marys, and then end it as if it were a whole rosary, and then end it with the Hail Holy Queen and a St. Michael prayer, so that every night you teach your children a little something, and that would take all of 5 minutes to do one decade. But begin the rosary as if you were to begin it normally and end it as you would normally. This way you're teaching your children the Apostles' Creed, the Hail Holy Queen, and the St. Michael prayer. But parents, mom and dad, after all that is over with your family rosary, your family prayer time, you too must pray an Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory Be every night before falling asleep together. Maybe you have a special intention for that day, something at work or something in the family or whatnot, But when you pray together as a couple, it'll protect your marriage from the fierce attacks these days of the devil. And also your family rosary then is protection against the evil one on the family. I was just made aware of last week that 20 years ago when I spoke about the devil and hell to a third grade class in a northwest suburban parish, that the teacher didn't believe in hell or the devil. And I said, well, that's not the teaching of the church. And this particular priest, I found out just last week, this is 20 years ago, went back to those third graders and explained to them that there was no hell and there was no devil. I'm like, oh my gosh, the apostasy, the mal teaching that goes on for decades now, And that's more current. But anyway, okay, we pray. And when we put these things back in our life personally, it'll have a ripple effect in our families especially, and go out and renew both the church and the world. So she says, she says, oh, my children, you must say them morning and evening. When you can do no more, say an Our Father, a Hail Mary, and when you have the time to do better, you will say more. Our Lady continues, only a few old women go to Mass in the summer. The rest work all day Sunday, and in the winter, when they are at home, when they are at a loose end, they only go to Mass to make fun of religion. During Lent, they go to the butchers like hungry dogs. Our society has treated Sunday pretty much the same way the last couple generations now. I mean, when I was a teenager, grammar school and high school, most of my peers seemed like all families went to church still on Sunday. But beginning with my generation, probably from the 60s and 70s, once people went to college, they dropped church, and that means then that their kids, who would now be in their 40s, I would imagine, most of them are unchurched, and their kids are not being raised with church or not raised with any religion whatsoever, okay? So then Our Lady says, have you ever seen any spoiled wheat, my children? We both answered, oh, no, madame. The Holy Virgin turned to Maximin, saying, but you, my child, you must have seen some once near Lecoin with your father. The farmer said to your father, come and see how my wheat's gone bad. You went to see. Your father took 2 or 3 ears in his hand, rubbed them, and they fell to dust. Then on your way back, when you were no more than half an hour away from Kor, your father gave you a piece of bread and said, 'Take it, eat it while you can, my son, for I don't know who will be eating anything next year if the wheat is spoiled like that.' Maximin replied, 'It's quite true, madame. I didn't remember.' The Most Holy Virgin brought her speech to an end in French, quote, 'And so, my children, you will pass this on to all my people.' The most beautiful lady crossed the stream, and after 2 more steps, without turning back towards us, who were following her, for we were drawn to her by her brilliance, and even more by her kindness, which elated me, which seemed to melt my heart, she repeated to us, 'And so, my children, you will pass this on to all my people.' Then she walked on to the place where I had gone to see our cows. Her feet touched nothing but the tips of the grass, and without bending them. Once on the top of the little mound, the beautiful lady stopped, and I hurried to stand in front of her to look at her so closely, and try and see which path she was most inclined to take. For it was all over for me. I had forgotten both my cows and the masters I worked for. I had linked myself forever and unconditionally to my lady. Yes, I wanted never to leave her. I followed her with no other motive and fully disposed to serve her for the rest of my life. In the presence of my lady, I felt I had forgotten paradise. I thought of nothing more but to serve her in every way possible, and I felt I could have done everything she could have asked me to do, for it seemed to me that she had a great deal of power. She looked at me with a tender kindness which drew me to her. I could have thrown myself into her arms with my eyes closed. She did not give me the time to do so. She rose imperceptibly from the ground to a height of around 4 feet or more, and hanging thus in the air for a split second, my beautiful lady looked up to heaven, then down on the earth to her right, and then her left. Then she looked at me with her eyes so soft, so kind, and so good, that I felt she was drawing me inside her, and my heart seemed to open up to hers. And as my heart melted away, sweetly gladdened, the beautiful face of my good lady disappeared little by little. It seemed to me that light in motion was growing stronger, or rather condensing around the Most Holy Virgin to prevent me seeing her any longer. And thus light took the place of the parts of her body which were disappearing in front of my eyes, or rather it seemed to me that the body of my lady was melting into light. Thus the sphere of light rose gently towards the right. I cannot say whether the volume of light decreased as she rose, or whether the growing distance made me see less and less light as she rose. What I do know is that I was a long time with my head raised up, staring at the light, even after the light, which kept getting further away and decreasing in volume, had finally disappeared. I take my eyes from the firmament, I look around me. I see Maximin looking at me, and I say to him, "Maxie, that must have been my father's good Lord, or the Holy Virgin, or some other great saint." And Maximin throws his arms into the air and says, "Oh, if I had known." So there's a little footnote here about my father's good Lord. This is the crucifix, this living crucifix which the beautiful lady wears around her neck and which seemed to talk to her, the Holy Virgin. Melanie does not seem to have doubted for a moment that it was her. This comes out in the account, however. She does not dare to be the first to state it. It is for the Church of Jesus Christ to do so. She has this intuition. In effect, the next morning, it is the parish priest of LaSalette who cries out at the account of the 2 children, "It was the Holy Virgin who appeared to you," and from the pulpit will announce this to the parishioners and to all the faithful ones among them. The evening of the 19th of September, we went back down a little earlier than usual. When I arrived at my master's farm, I was busy tying up my cows and tidying up the stable, and had not yet finished when my mistress came up to me in tears and said, "Why, my child, why didn't you come and tell me what happened on the mountain?" Maximin, not having found his masters, who were still at work, had come over to mine and recounted everything he had seen and heard. I replied, I did want to tell you, but I wanted to get my work finished first. A moment later, I walked over to the house, and my mistress said to me, "Tell me what you have seen." De Bruit, the shepherd, that was the nickname of Pierre Salme, Maximin's master, has told me everything. I began, and towards the middle of the account, my master arrived back from the fields. My mistress, who was in tears at hearing the complaints and threats of our sweet mother, said, you are going to harvest the wheat tomorrow on Sunday. Take great care. Come and hear what happened today to this child and Pierre Salme's shepherd boy. And turning to me, she said, repeat everything you have said. I start again, and when I had finished, my master said, it was the Holy Virgin, or else a great saint who has come on behalf of the good Lord. But it is as if the good Lord had come himself. We must do what this saint said. How are you going to manage to tell that to all her people? I replied, you tell me how I must go about it, and I will do it. Then looking at his mother, wife, and brother, he added, I'll have to think about that. Then everyone went back to their business. After supper, Maximin and his masters came over to see my masters and to recount what Maximin had told them, and decided what was to be done. For they said, it seems to us that it was the Holy Virgin sent by the good Lord. The words which she spoke convince us of this, and she told them to pass it on to all her people. Perhaps these children will have to travel the world over to make it known that everyone must observe the commandments of the good Lord, lest great misfortunes come upon us. And can you imagine, today we live in an era where it's certainly way beyond not only missing Mass on Sunday, which only 10 to 20% of the Catholics go to church on Sunday, but then the working on Sunday. There used to be a time in our country we had what they called the blue laws. I would have been a child back then when all of that stuff kind of became passé. But that really was to not encourage working on Sunday. So most stores were closed. But we're way beyond in our evil in our world today, and that's why the Marian movement of priests speaks once again of these kinds of punishments and chastisements and tribulations are upon us, whether it be all the storms that we see or the riots that increase or the wars that are growing. This is all a consequence to sin. Even in Fatima, Our Lady says war is a consequence to sin. After a moment's silence, my master said to Maximin and I, do you know what you must do, my children? Tomorrow you must get up early, and both of you go and see the priest and tell him everything you have seen and heard. Tell him carefully how it all happened. He will tell you what you have to do. The 20th of September, the day after the apparition, I left early in the morning with Maximin. When we reached the presbytery, I knocked at the door. The priest's housekeeper came and opened the door and asked us what we wanted. I said to her in French, and I who had never spoken French, we would like to speak to Father Perrin. And what have you got to say to him, she asked. We wish to tell him, miss, that yesterday we went up to watch over our cows on Bessay Mountain, and after dinner, etc., etc. We recounted a good piece of the Most Holy Virgin's words. Then the church bell rang. It was the final call for Mass. Father Perrin, the parish priest of LaSalette, who had heard us, flung open his door. He was in tears and was beating his chest. He said to us, my children, we are lost. God will punish us. Oh, good Lord, it was the Holy Virgin who appeared to you. And he left to say Holy Mass. We looked at each other, Maximin, the housekeeper, and I. Then Maximin said to me, I'm off home to my father at Kor. And we parted company. As my masters had not told me to return to work immediately after speaking to Father Perrin, I saw no harm in going to Mass. And so I was in church. Mass begins, and after the first reading from the Gospel, Father Perrin turns to the congregation and tries to recount to his parishioners the story of the apparition which had just taken place the day before on one of their mountains, and he urges them to stop working on Sundays. His voice was broken with sobs, and all the congregation was greatly moved. After Holy Mass, I went back to my master to work. Mr. Pétard, who still today is the mayor of LaSalette, came to question me on the apparition, and when he had made sure that I was speaking the truth, he went away convinced. I stayed on in the service of my masters until All Saints' Day. Then I was boarded with the nuns of Providence in my hometown of Kor. So this concludes part 3 of this reading of the apparition of the Blessed Virgin on the mountain of LaSalette, the 19th of September, 1846. Okay, God bless, and I'll pick it up in part 4, which will be the last part.